Great. Thanks, Lou. Hi, everyone. I'm actually speaking about a shadow judging project that was initiated about 4 years ago. We had a couple of years trial in Victoria, and this is the second year that it's about to run nationally. But it's come because the Children's Book Council of Australia, as you might be familiar, has been running literary awards for like 77 years. But the last decade, there's been a growing need for saying, hey, what about the people that these books were written for? Let's give them a voice. And it's been such an exciting project because we're really finding success with the book clubs that we've started and how they feel really empowered and excited about making those decisions for themselves. So when we've had roundup interviews for the last couple of years, we've found that unanimously the teenagers that have been involved in these book clubs have said, yeah, it's really important that we get to have a say about which books win. They're written for us. It may even help authors and illustrators, publishers know more about the sorts of books that we enjoy. And several commented on how they felt they might have a different perspective than adults in actually choosing what they think are meritorious books. The data here is about the last year. So this is the shortlist from 2022. The actual shortlist for the coming year is announced tomorrow at midday. So there'll be a whole another set of books that are on the website, and there's a really fantastic range, and I think you'll be excited about a couple of them, Danielle too. So these were the books that kicked off our program. We started nationally by encouraging we had a RISE grant from the government, and we were able to fund a set of books to about 20 reading groups in every state. And we also funded an author to come and speak to the book group. So there were book groups in schools, public libraries, home schools, bookshops, and if a parent wanted to gather like-minded kids together, they could run one too. So there's no size limit, and it just had to have an adult facilitator. And off they went with reading the books and experiencing them first, and then thinking about what it was that, as far as literary merit went. Overwhelmingly, they said it gave them a chance to read a variety of books, and I think, to be honest, these are confirmed readers. We're talking about book clubs, so they're self-selecting to join these book clubs, but they absolutely ran with it. So it was a voluntary activity at lunchtime, after school or weekends. We even had one group that ran on a Saturday night, which was pretty amazing. But yes, they all, as you would imagine, the 6 shortlisted books are all very different. It was interesting to compare them, even though they were all different. And they all spoke about the bonding as a group, and they were cross-age. Some of them, there was a difference of 3 years in age group of the young people that got together in the book group. So there was a bonding experience, and mainly just the fun of being together, and it wasn't curriculum-based. Any of the activities were not driven by curriculum. It was just looking at a criteria, which we'll get to shortly. One of the most impactful experiences that the young people came out with was getting to know the characters. So a theorist that I've been using for another study talks about a lived through experience, with literature being the most important thing, where you get to know the characters better than your next door neighbour. And certainly that's a reflection of a lot of the young people in these book clubs talked about. I really identified with the character. I learnt about them. I really enjoyed that experience. These were 2 of the books that they read. Rebecca Lim, who's the author of last year's Children's Book Council of Australia Older Reader book, Tiger Daughter, recently said that the best books give us lessons for life. And I don't think she means in a didactic sense. She just means you can read about that in the comfort of knowing that you're not in that situation, but you still learn from it. And certainly the shadow judges express those sentiments. I particularly like the quote that all the characters are well developed and we got to follow them as they discovered things about themselves. So they were very much enmeshed in the character development. And you can see one person there talked about the Tiger Daughter, exposing her to a Chinese culture, which is not something that she'd been familiar with. So you do get to learn different things. So the book groups use the same criteria that the adult judges use for literary awards. So it's certainly aesthetic qualities of language. So how does that language speak to you? Is it appropriate for the book and the character? Is it multifaceted? Are the characters realistic? Does the book all hang together, the language, the theme, the style? Is it authentic? Is it realistic to you? Appeal to the implied readership, and that was really interesting to hear Danielle talk about that gap, and we actually understand that as well. There's not enough pitched for that 14, 15-year-old. And quality of illustrations, and we're getting more graphic work through. But the illustrations, the book design, the production, the editing, it all has to come together and sing for this experience for the young adults. Because the moment it doesn't, they kind of drop out of the experience. So they're looking for a really cohesive experience. One of the ways that they really deepened their experience, because they read and shared their thoughts about the literary quality, but then they gave a creative response. And you can post this on the website. And we had hundreds of amazing creative responses. So from book trailers, artworks, poems, recorded interviews with characters, even T-shirts, augmented reality presentations. Honestly, the sky was the limit. And it was fabulous how they really deepened their enjoyment of the book by just having fun, creating something that showed what they felt about it. So one's a visual representation there, and then for those of you that don't know that book, it's about a girl who gets tired of hanging around her boyfriend who's car mad, decides to one day to take off in the car with her girlfriend on a road trip up the east coast of Australia, which, yes, ended badly for one of them, and the other one, disappeared. But very effective book, and there was even another nice response from another book group where they interviewed the girl in juvie. It was like a little podcast they sent in, and so they, it was really so creative, a lot of what they did. But I could have an hour of showing you what these people did, and they were just extraordinary. So. There is an archive that we can show, and then the new project starts tomorrow, and that's a website where they will upload their creative responses directly to the website. We also encourage the book groups to have creator visits, and with the RISE grant we're able to pay for that, and Victorian branch of the CBCA actually sponsored reading groups to have a creator visit, and Danielle was one of our very successful ones a couple of years ago. From this year onwards, it's a self-funded exercise where reading groups pay $50 to become part of the project, and it's an optional extra to have a creator visit. Victoria has 20 places for reading groups where they will sponsor the creator to come out and work or present to that reading group. So there are still places available for that. So most reading groups did consolidate the experience by having a creator visit, either in person or virtually, as Fiona Wood's there on the screen. And this was most of the students mentioned in their feedback that it was great fun, and they felt very special having a creator speak directly to them. Here's Nikki Greenberg working with the Seven Seeds Book Club in Victoria, who is, a popular addition. So unanimously the feedback was that they were really happy. It was a much better experience even than they were anticipating, mainly because of the friendships that were formed, the fun in the creative licence to respond to the book in any way they wanted to, and having a visit specially for that book group. So to the votings. So we talked about earlier about the difference between adult and focused reader responses. So the bottom section is the Adult Judges Book of the Year Awards from 2022, and Tiger Daughter won the older readers section. It did come probably second in the student vote. It was a very popular book, but overall their winner was Sugartown Queens, which it was really interesting because it's a book set in sort of shantytown of South Africa, and just of the experience of girls in that situation. But a lot of the responses were really personal about how they got to know that character and learnt a lot from it. Interestingly, the voting was challenging, of course, as it always is. So it's never easy, even in whatever panel you're in. So there were quite a few where they said it was difficult when you were trying to convince, team members that the book that you really felt was the strongest should win. I was lucky enough to listen in to or join in a group, and the passion, as they were trying to get other members of their group across the line. But they were, if they had come to the final meeting with a particular point of view, they were prepared to defend it to death. There wasn't a lot of changed views. Quite a few of them said that they learnt a lot about actual literary quality, judging, listening to other people, defending their own choices amongst groups, and appreciating other people's opinions. So basically, how do you join? Shadow Judging CBCA.org.au is a website that you go to, you register there with your $50. You're sent a whole lot of information about how to support your reading group with material that might help, very much focusing on open-ended questions. This is not a teaching exercise, so it might be a book that really you're talking about a particular issue. It's getting those reading group participants to come up with their own ideas, tackle some of the hard questions that might come up in the book, or talk about the elements in the book that really made the book stand out for them. The national coordinator is Jo Pankridge, who's the Victorian president. There's her personal email if you are still looking for more information. But the whole thing being that you read the 6 shortlisted books and then you share the creative responses directly onto the website, you vote, that vote is tallied, and from last year, and we'll do it again this year, there'll be an announcement on the final day of Book Week, which is the Shadowers' Choice Awards, and that is definitely growing in popularity. But there's 20 funded places, I think I mentioned earlier. Yes, you can just join yourself, and you might already have the 6 shortlisted books. If you're a public library, you could do it within your own collection or any other way. But we do have, as I said, 20 places for fully funded disadvantaged reading groups where we will supply the books and a visiting author to facilitate the discussion. But yeah, thank you.